thank you very much. Hello to everyone. I'm very glad to see you here at this rapid and short meeting, unfortunately, on our T7 task force plan, Save the Planet. So first of all, let me thank you all for your great contributions to the policy briefs. And we are very, very overwhelmed and pleased by all the good work and all your enthusiasm to bring it in such a short time to such a high quality and recommendations. So today's meeting is twofold. We hope most of you had a look at the policy briefs which are on the platform uploaded. We do not have much time for the policy briefs today to discuss them all. We try to do this later on. They are currently labeled as drafts because some of them are still a bit in the focusing, I would say, but they are all very, very interesting and very good. So we have 40 seconds elevator speeches for all of them, and I try to run through them, and I'm pretty sharp on timing, I can tell you. Sorry, I have to be, because today's most important task is that we agree on those areas and content, more or less content of the recommendations which we would lift up to the umbrella paper. And so that will be the second half of today's 50 minutes meeting, which we only have. And that's why we have only very short time on the policy briefs themselves. But I hope that you get in contact and network afterwards. So I will start calling people. I do not exactly know who is responsible and presenting which policy brief here at the moment, but I will call you for the 40 seconds, and I would actually like to start with Brittany Warren, if she's around, or someone else from that group. Not there. Mark Elder?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. Last year, the G7 adopted the concept of a green revolution that creates jobs. The G7 should continue it and make it more concrete. And my policy brief shows how to do this by implementing some important but overlooked economic and environmental SDG targets, which could create many jobs. These goals and targets include sustainable consumption and production, sustainable industry upgrading, sustainable agriculture, transportation and buildings, resource efficiency, and decoupling economic growth from the environment. And many jobs could also be created by ecosystem conservation and restoration, as well as pollution monitoring and cleanup. The G7 should focus more on SDGs, which can help achieve many priorities, including the Ukraine war, COVID recovery, and preventing future pandemics. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next one would be Thomas Pogge, please.
I don't see him, so I'll speak. So I'm speaking on the Green Impact Fund and the Energy Transition Mechanism. So the Green Impact Fund for tech. You're here. Go ahead.
Sorry, but the Energy Transition Mechanism, ETM, is a scalable collaborative initiative led by the Asian Development Bank to accelerate the transition from fossil fuels to clean energy. It funds early retirement of coal power plants in developing countries. Proceeds from ETM purchased coal plants will be used for low carbon technologies. Pilots of ETM have been launched in Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. The Green Impact Fund for Technology, or GIFT, would give innovators the option, limited to the developing countries, to exchange their monopoly privileges on a new green technology for rewards based on emissions averted by its deployments. The gift would boost green tech R&D and greatly increase uptake of green technologies in the global south. We asked the G7 to fund a 120 million euro gift pilot project. Over.
Thank you very much. Andrew Deutz, or someone from the group on accelerating renewable energy development for energy and nature security. Okay, not here. Then we go to health. Maike Voss, climate change and health.
Yes, hello, thank you. The effects of climate change identified as the biggest threat to global health in the 21st century are already affecting health and well-being adversely, and impacts will aggravate on the future and drastic outcomes on human health. The G7 presidency of Germany has put climate change and health combined on its agenda. So we give recommendations on looking at climate resilient and sustainable environmental friendly health systems. We recommend that the G7 invest in integrated climate change and health surveillance, monitoring, early warning system, and joint strategic foresight. Moreover, capacity building and training of current and future health workforce is needed. And finally, the G7 could promote integrated financing of climate action and global health architecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much also to the other speakers before and all authors. Now come to the ocean, safeguarding the blue planet.
So we call on the G7 to articulate an ambitious ocean deal focusing on 3 dimensions: ambitious ocean governance to safeguard ocean health and climate, improving ocean observations, data infrastructure and knowledge sharing, and financing the transition towards more sustainable interactions with the ocean. Specifically, curb subsidies that contribute to overfishing and finalize the related WTO agreement, reduce marine debris through a comprehensive global agreement on plastic pollution, pause deep sea mining until risks are better understood, expand marine protected areas to 30% by 2030, promote the importance of the ocean climate nexus by strengthening the ocean dimension on climate negotiations, and in the second area, adopt a binding commitment for sustainable and global ocean observations and data infrastructure. And in the third dimension, redesign and scale up ocean finances by increasing funding for nature positive and science-based opportunities, large-scale investment into zero carbon, resilient, and nature-based coastal blue infrastructure.
Thank you very much. We now come to food and agriculture, and I would start with Corinne Peluchon, food and agriculture.
Food and agriculture should be mentioned. Oops. Since it is a atomistic approach of ecology, pillars, the environmental dimension, social justice, health, and animal welfare, and there is 3 proposals. First, financial aid to implement the logistical changes and to compensate farmers, incentivize farmers who move from an intensive to an extensive agriculture model. And it's not a universal basic income, but it's conditional. And an ecological transition income is proposed as an effective instrument to achieve these requirements. And second, food prices need to reflect the negative externalities, such as a carbon footprint stemming from energy consumption, methane emissions and transportation. And well, of course, it's important to rediscuss the terms of trade treaties and economic partnership agreements. And lastly, it proposes a vegetarianization of food supplies, starting with public catering and the creation of linked educational programs for different age groups to encourage a healthy diet, but also a diet which is better for the planet and for animal welfare.
Thank you very much. We now come to food climate nexus. I see Hemnat here. Maybe it's you, I don't know.
Yes, thank you, Daniela. Ladies and gentlemen, this policy brief recommending to the G7 and the Think7 for constituting an international consortium of smallholder farmers is a joint effort of the Asian Development Bank Institute based out of Tokyo and Stratpol International based here in Hyderabad, India. We have had some very useful inputs from Dr. Lindsay Stringer, which we are in the process of incorporating in our policy brief and we'll be resubmitting. But fundamentally, the policy brief seeks to address the plight and vulnerabilities of the smallholder farmers who are the most affected by the unfolding risks and climate change challenges that we are all witnessing. We believe that the existing institutional architecture that is represented by the CGIAR system, the Food and Agricultural Organization of the UN, the IFAD and others have done a wonderful job in pushing the frontiers of food production and productivity and crop yields. But the fact remains that smallholder farmers, who are typically farmers with 2 hectares landholding or less, and who constitute 80% of the total number of farming units around the world, stand at a very serious disadvantage, both in terms of asymmetry of information, access to markets, trade and supply channels, and above all, information, education, and communication that is at the heart of agricultural extension, which in turn empowers the farmers to produce more. Therefore, we believe that the International Smallholder Farmers Agribusiness Consortium, if accepted as a recommendation at ELMAO, the G7 would be making a huge contribution to food security by creating a trusteeship-based institution that will inspire confidence in the smallholder farmers, that there is a body of knowledge that they can directly access, and they can also access the trade and market channels. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emraj. Thank you. I have seen that Dil Raoud has difficulties to join, so I will join. Yes. Oh, you joined. Perfect. Can you then please present us the biodiversity and ecology protection policy brief in 40 seconds, please? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. The problem of biodiversity loss and ecological collapse is getting worse. Biodiversity concerns are set to be the next frontier after climate change, as it poses severe threat to the sustainable future and well-being of global populations. Therefore, this policy brief recommends G7 to uplift the game of conserving biodiversity and ecology to save only one planet. Firstly, G7 and other leading donors should increase their investment to protect biodiversity and ecology at large. Secondly, the G7, with the resources and market disposal, should link biodiversity conservation with international trade, aid, and investment to reward countries and communities for protecting and conserving biodiversity and natural capital. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we are coming to the energy sector again, and I have seen Agustin Redonda. Would you please speak up?
Yes, thank you. So governments worldwide have pledged to fight climate change and cut CO2 emissions. Yet, most countries still subsidize the production and consumption of fossil fuels. We urge G7 governments to reaffirm their commitment to phase out fossil fuel subsidies by 2025 at the latest, and stop any financial support for coal by mid-2023. We also urge them to take the lead in providing full inventories of their fossil fuel subsidies, including those provided through their tax systems, which are often strikingly opaque, and undertake sound evaluations of those measures. Improving transparency on the real costs and benefits of fossil fuel subsidies is necessary to inform policymakers and trigger public debate. It is also vital to drive evidence-based reforms in the fossil fuel subsidies field. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We are now moving towards the clean IT, and I would like to ask Christoph Meinl first to present.
This is Malin. I don't think he can make it, so I will go ahead.
Thank you.
So Christoph Meinl is with the Hasso-Plattner Institute, and I am with People-Centered Internet. The Clean IT proposal is to support energy-efficient digital systems. COVID has shown that digital transformation is going to be underway in the world. We don't want to create another problem like the plastics problem, where we didn't know all the damage it would cause. Digital systems now are not energy efficient, so let's make them energy efficient today. We are proposing the G7 do 3 things. The first one is update government procurement standards, guidelines, so that only clean IT systems are procured. Let's stop it from spreading. We also recommend a sustainable by design engineering curriculum in all the G7 countries, and with the IEEE, move it through to all engineering schools. And finally, to do energy efficient algorithms. We can stop the problem of inefficient energy, but we have to do these new guidelines ASAP.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask Mike Luyken. Sharon? Michael, there, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm here. We would like to propose a digital technical knowledge commons that's focused on climate change and sustainability to sort of support accelerating implementations and deployments of solutions addressing, of course, the challenges that are posed by climate change and the goal of sustainability. So the issue we really would like to address is that the learnings and neutral expertise and know-how, especially in the technical domains, are confined to those, quote unquote, in the know. In the know in terms of user communities, for example, scientific engineering communities, and in terms of language, like in technical language. This is a barrier to reaching scale-level sustainability achievements. And so our proposal is to make technical knowledge, especially contextualized technical knowledge, as in for local conditions, expertise and tools widely accessible to the user communities. And that would include municipalities, et cetera, to support decision-making and investments in sustainable long-term implementations. With access to technical architecture documents, blueprints, for example, best practices, deliverables, bill of materials, and access to real-world expertise, this digital technical knowledge commons, as we would like to call it, focused on meeting the challenges posed by climate change and the SDGs, is expected to provide a pathway to accelerate the many initiatives that we have in place today and those to come in the future. For this reason, we are asking the G7 to support the climate change sustainability digital technical knowledge commons through endorsement, use, and encouraged collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have two areas now left, the financing and the climate club. I don't know if the nature-based solution, if Brittany Warren has shown up, but I would like to start with the climate club now and ask Axel, please speak up.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we propose an open and cooperative G7 climate alliance with the following design documents. So it should have a differentiated carbon price with a common floor, starting at 50 euros in 2025 and 100 euros in 2030. It should agree on common energy sector policies, including a 2024 removal of fossil fuel subsidies, a 2030 phase out for coal-fired electricity generation for its OECD members, and a commitment to immediately end the new development of upstream coal, oil, and gas supply infrastructure. It should apply a carrot and stick approach based on Article 6 of the Paris Agreement and a differentiated carbon border adjustment mechanism. That mechanism is a crucial stick to avoid carbon leakage with differentiation based on development status and clear exemptions for least developed countries. Additional carrots should include differentiated carbon border levy refunds, as well as targeted industry and energy partnerships. And then there should be a roadmap to ratchet up the ambition of measures within and beyond the alliance. And that, of course, should involve an increase from G7 to G20 and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Axel. Is Rafael Leal Arcas online? Seems not the case. And then we have another one, Sir John Aston, or someone from the authorship.
Yes, this is Malin speaking on behalf of
Please.
the community climate clubs. We are proposing that the G7 catalyze by funding community climate clubs first in the G7 countries related to the engineering schools. That could be bringing a network of community climate clubs that allow ordinary people to participate in reducing, meeting the climate challenge. By having it based in engineering schools, we can actually collaborate with the IEEE Global Knowledge Commons. We could actually apply engineering expertise which is in every country, and help them come together in a global force to make the population of each country aware of what they can do to meet the climate challenge. The Global Climate Club needs the popular support of the population of the world. And so community climate clubs are essential. We're proposing a 25 million euro commitment for 10 years in order to start this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we now move on to the financing, and eventually, Marlene, it's you again for Michael Sung. I guess you're presenting that one too, please.
Yes. So Michael Sung is based in China, and China has actually financed the most SMEs, tens of millions of SMEs, but in a way that's not really transferable to the rest of the world. So we are proposing that the G7 initiate a pilot with Indonesia as a decentralized country with 17,000 islands. That would be a good model for how MSME financing could actually adapt the China model. But this could particularly be used to fund SMEs in the circular economy. So this could be a wonderful collaboration between the G7 and G20 to initiate how small, medium enterprises can help to develop a circular economy and address deforestation and all kinds of issues that are really causing climate change in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miley. Then we have another policy brief by Claire Feisen, and I think it's Tabea Lisner who is online. Could you eventually present?
Yes,
recommendation?
happy to
Thanks.
present. Thanks a lot. So yeah, our policy brief focuses on the need for the G7 to step up climate ambition, action, and finance. And just to highlight the core recommendation coming out of this paper, that the G7 really need to commit as a group to lower their emissions by 60% by 2030 compared to 2010 levels. And in order to achieve this, the G7 countries really need to strengthen their national 2030 targets this year to align with the Paris Agreement 1.5-degree temperature goal to be consistent with the Glasgow Climate Pact. In terms of concrete steps to keep the 1.5-degree goal in sight, and also, of course, acknowledging the current geopolitical challenges for energy security, it's really essential in that context to note that coal can under no circumstances be considered a bridging fuel. And instead, the current crisis must really lead to countries to accelerate investments in renewables, energy efficiency, and electrification measures in order to create a more resilient, low carbon energy system and to align with the Paris Agreement. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So we have now gone through almost all of the policy briefs which had been submitted. There is one more on the platform, which you can see from Brittany Warren on nature-based solutions for climate change. Please go there and have a look at. And then we had 3 very short contributions from Andrew Deutz on nature conservancy. And I haven't seen him or someone from the group here, but I really recommend that since we have many others online here, which is great, that you go to the platform and have a look and contact the authors of the policy briefs. If you detect an area which has not been mentioned, as I just see here from Jens Löschwitz on circular economy, which has also not brought up yet, please put it into the chat so that we can take a note of this, and we are not, and the topic is not get lost. I would now slowly pass to John, And because we're now entering the phase of which areas and recommendations we would like to suggest to be lifted towards the umbrella paper. John, are you prepared to take over for this? I cannot hear you, unfortunately. Your microphone is switched off.
Is this
No.
better? Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. As Daniela suggested, each of the task forces, of which there are 5, are required to submit an umbrella paper, which would contain, we were told, 3 recommendations, the 3 best recommendations. Our task force is special because we are number 1, task force 1. Our title is Saving the Planet, recognizing that ours is the only one that deals with a genuinely existential threat. We have a very broad remit: food and agriculture, climate change, clean energy, oceans, and other things, including health. And that's why I think we've attracted more policy briefs, 20 at the moment, than any other task force. And our 20 contain about 100 specific recommendations. So at this stage, in order to meet the requirement from the task force co-chairs, your task force co-chairs have decided we will submit not 3, but 6 of our best recommendations, and recognizing that they, as the policy briefs that lie behind, are still a work in progress. The top 6, you'll understand, could not contain all of the 100, but I do hope you will see in a subordinate clause, or at least an adjective, some recognition of your work. And remember that your full policy briefs will be up on the website for the G7 leader of your choice, or all of them to read as he or she sees fit. At the moment, the 6 are as follows. The first, end fossil fuel subsidies. Specifically, freeze, reduce, and end all fossil fuel subsidies by stopping those for the development, production, use, and distribution of coal in 2022, that's this year, of a non-offset heavy oil by 2023, of a non-offset light oil and natural gas by 2024, and all nature harmful ones by 2025, while shifting these subsidies to catalyze renewable sources in proactively identified suitable sites and in natural carbon sinks in ways that benefit the poor. Number 2, expand climate finance. Expand climate finance for developing countries by G7 governments together filling the gap this year to reach the promised $100 billion per year, using their share of the new International Monetary Fund's special drawing rights and debt for nature swaps to increase this amount each year. in ways that ensure full nature positive climate, biodiversity, and ecological benefits. Third, create climate clubs. Create climate clubs on a G7 plus EU core to lower greenhouse gas emissions by 60%, that's 60% from 2010 levels. And by adding those countries immediately willing and able to contribute to A, powering past coal, B, preserving peatland, C, growing over 1 trillion trees, D, expanding land and marine national protected areas to over 30% of national territory, E, pricing carbon, F, introducing needed carbon border adjustment mechanisms, and G, shaping climate-friendly cryptocurrency regulations while incentivizing supportive community networks and using appropriate legal instruments. Next, strengthen sustainable agriculture. Strengthen sustainable agriculture, food and water security, and planetary and human health by creating enabling economic, legal, political, institutional, and sociocultural conditions, shifting supports from animal to plant production and consumption, removing environmentally damaging subsidies that incentivize soil and water degradation and overfishing, and by raising animal welfare standards. Next, nurture socially just and inclusive nature-based solutions as a core component of climate resilient development. Preserve all old growth forests, trees, and peatlands. Build green urban infrastructure. Protect wetlands and mangroves. Create clean water. Respect indigenous people's rights and involve them, local communities, and subnational governments in the design and delivery of the necessary programs. Finally, in a numerical order, not of course in importance, create climate health benefits. Create an ecologically enhancing healthcare system to improve physical, mental, and emotional health by making healthcare facilities climate resilient and carbon reducing through improved design and siting, using nature and a One Health approach, ... because I'm waiting to hear a bit more from the next iteration of the policy brief by Madame Voss, including, if possible, with numerical targets and timetables, and also willing to have a more extensive discussion with my colleague Ilona Kickbush, who is a task force co-chair of one of the five, the one on health. So not quite complete, but that's where we are at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, John. So now you got a first idea about the 6 areas which we picked. As John said, it's unclear how many we can finally submit, but do you want to comment? Axel, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Of course, I'm happy to see that climate clubs play an important role in the recommendation. Just one aspect would be with regard to the partnerships, that the application of Article 6, so the international collaborative mechanisms of the Paris Agreement, might be mentioned in the context of the CBAM. Thank you.
Thank you. John, do you want to comment? We cannot hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now? Very quickly, Axel, quick response, just so you know where I've been coming from so far. Certainly partnerships, yes, but I do have some reservations to holding our recommendations to what the G7 leaders should do to existing multilateral frameworks, be it Glasgow or Paris or the WTO or so on down the line. So yes, always better to reinforce what some say is the universal multilateral, sometimes legally agreed and implemented through national legislatures at home. But I don't think, given the urgency of our crises, we should hold the G7 leaders, I would say, hostage to those multilateral regimes. So partnership, yes. Article 6, question mark.
So we have 2 more comments, Mylin and Camilla.
So there's a sort of a meta knowledge layer that I think applies across all 6, which has to do with the engineering, knowledge sharing and clearinghouse, so that each country or each climate club isn't reinventing the wheel. So Micah Lucan brought up the IEEE, and we brought up in both the climate clubs and other proposals, the sharing of engineering knowledge so the people of the world could participate. And I just ask for consideration that this is a kind of meta level issue that may help enhance and augment our ability to execute on all 6 proposals.
Thank you, Camilla.
Thank you very much, and to everybody who has contributed, and also for trying to identify double the amount of recommendations we can, and squeezing about 50 into these 6 recommendations. Thank you, John. Marvelous job. I was just thinking, with respect to the UN Ocean Summit taking place this year, and UNEA just having passed a mandate for a plastic treaty and the like, and the ocean issue comes somehow very short, I understand. I wonder if there is room to increase that, even though the only idea I would have to say, and harmful subsidies, and fossil fuel would be one, and oceans would be one, or something like this, even though it's not as specific. And I like actually the fossil fuel subsidies because they have committed already, but somehow I think, or I overheard something, the oceans coming a bit short while being very big.
John, would you like to comment on this?
Very quickly, yes. Plastics, we've heard of it. But this is one case where the last time I looked, a vast majority of those plastics actually going into the oceans come from about 10 rivers, many of them in Asia. So I thought that might be a problem that could, given what's already happened, the great progress from the United Nations Environmental Assembly, enough momentum for the next 6 months, and then more from the leaders of the G20 who oversee most of those rivers at the Bali summit, with the G7 leaders saving their time and political energy for the things they more directly control.
We have reached our final 8 minutes for today. So, Michael, it's on you, I guess. Is it Michael or is it Michelle?
Michele.
Michele.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I was just
Sorry.
just wishing to make an additional comment on the issue of Article 6 to answer to John. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement is not just only a multilateral point. In the first paragraph, it calls for some parties to collaborate, which means that G7 plus European Union could stick on Article 6 of the Paris Agreement without being stuck by the multilateralism of the system. So it could be used.
Thanks. So supportive of, consistent with, in the spirit of Article 6. Yeah, sounds okay. Thanks. May I just conclude my remarks before Daniela sums up, unless there are any more comments? Let me say I'm delighted and very grateful that no one has said, well, the way you've used the particular phraseology, language and numbers has raised the ambition from what we have said in our policy briefs, and you're being too ambitious, and that no one has said the same thing about urgency, faster than you may have thought possible when you first penned your targets and timetables. And behind the tip of this iceberg lie a broad range of implementing mechanisms in the policy briefs, working group here, sharing knowledge through even engagement groups on the implementation side there with engineers involved. So thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, cher collègue.
Thank you very much, John. So if there are no final comments, I would like to use the last few minutes to discuss a little bit the way forward. So I saw your comments in the chat, and the chat will be saved, and we will be able to use your comments also further on. And I'm put there the information that if you go to the Global Solutions Summit website and then to our task force, you can then find more information, and there you find all uploaded policy briefs as they are of today. So we were in contact with many of you to give a bit of a feedback, and the idea is that the policy briefs will of course be there as individual documents also for further discussions in the upcoming weeks and months, and also for a further contribution as far as I understood. So they currently, if I'm correct, labeled as drafts, but I understood that most of them are more or less final. We wanted to have this one round here and to give you the opportunity also to make comments via email maybe later on, in case there are more points you would like to raise. Nevertheless, we do not have many. We don't have a lot of time left until the mid of April, if I'm correct. The idea is to have drafted and submitted the umbrella paper, in which you will find the suggested recommendations from the co-chairs. as we just heard. And of course, we will try to include also your comments on this. It will be very short, John, if I understood it, very short paper. And that is the basis which we will use to present at the T7 summit, which is in around the 24th or so of May, 20th, 24th of May. So that is the way forward. So nothing got lost. And the idea is to connect your policy briefs to the umbrella paper for further use in the future. So this is pretty much what I understood about the process. John, do you want to add something here?
One more thing. Please find out who your Sherpa in Minister of the Environment and Climate Change and such like is, and prepare at the appropriate moment when you bump in them into the elevator or such like to give them directly our recommendations rather than expecting everything to go through the T7 as a whole funnel in one big document to Dr. Cookies, the host Sherpa, at one moment in time. We really owe it to the G7 and the global community to actively make sure we educate at least 9, if not 1,000 points of light. Change comes in not on paper, but on feet, people to people. So please plan to intervene.
Yeah, thank you very much for this important point that we need all efforts and all channels to channel the recommendations to the next levels. And so there was one more question in the chat about when will the drafts be final. I expect not later than the final date of the umbrella paper, which is something, I think it's the 20th or 21st of April. So they will be changed now step by step, and several of them are already final, and we will be in contact with the lead author on this and let you know. With this, I would like to thank you all very much. I hope we could give you a nice overview about all the different topics and really great recommendations from the policy briefs, but also on what we would like to bring to the next level and the way forward. And please do not hesitate if you have questions, contact us. John, I think it's okay if they contact you, or it's for sure okay if they contact me, and I will speak on behalf of Lindsay also, and Madeline, who is here. And I would also like to thank Madeline very much for all the help which she's doing all the time in the back, and without her it wouldn't be possible to get all these things together, as with the team from the Global Summit and those who are dedicated to this task force. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best, and yeah, let's keep informed and let's build a little network. We'll let you know for the next events which we